Alright, the first war. Yep. So, I've played this a couple of times now, which is more than usual for me. Partly because I know my wife is up for a game like this, so we were able to get a game. She was very interested in seeing how my solo game worked out, which is kind of cool. Now, what this is, in a lot of ways, is sort of your standard Civ builder type game. You know, it's only 2-player. That's the biggest difference. And if you don't like the idea of a 2-player Civ builder, this is not the game for you, because it's really designed to be 2-player. Most Civ builders feel a little funny when you're playing them. Like something doesn't quite work out. It feels like they're a little cheap, like the combat or, whatever is going on in it. It feels a little too predetermined or whatever. Or you're just losing some aspect. Maybe there's some wheeling and dealing available. And this one doesn't suffer from that at all, by being designed from the get-go as a 2-player game. There may have been an attempt to make this a multiplayer game, just because here they say 2 to 4 players on the box. Now, on this part of the box, it's very clearly for 2. So I have the feeling maybe there was some difficulty in trying to expand it to a multiplayer game. And to tell you the truth, I think it's better to focus on the 2-player game. First of all, it would need more components to be 4-player. And I don't know what you would do with them. You'd have to, come up with different shaped pieces or something with the same colors. And it would get pretty confusing. But there may also be some kind of, some of the dynamics of play may not work well when translated to a multiplayer situation. So one thing this has is the hidden tiles on a big map that's just a blank area. So you have an exploration element to the game. And by the way, one of the hardest parts of the game, or most painful, is building that map out. Although some of the thinking in this is very painful by my standards. The actual play early in the game, it feels like your normal Civ builder, right? Not a lot of conflict. In fact, probably none, because you're so far away. You're expanding. You're trying to get your technology up, this, that, and the other. Now, in the play that I had, the technology got just totally nerfed, and that is not at all common. But in general, you've got some ability before you come in contact with the enemy to have built up a little bit of tech. And there's a little randomness to which tech items you have available to you. If you really want ones, you can ensure that you do by, spending your tech to reveal cards until you get the ones that you really want to purchase. But on the other side of things, there are, there's an advantage to getting things at about the price they're, at their list price plus whatever cost it is to reveal. There's a lot of nice mechanisms in this game. Some of them don't seem all that out of the ordinary. So, for example, the ability to just, move and explore and stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty common. Every one of the tech cards has an effect, and almost all of them have a fairly significant effect on the play. So you're faced with tough decisions as to which ones to get. None of them are just, oh yeah, this is victory points. In addition, the way that the tech tree, or the tech pyramid is set up, kind of like a game, what the hell was it? The solitaire game where you have to get 13s. I don't remember what the name of it was. certain cards are easier to reveal than others. And that's kind of a nice little, I don't know, it just pleases me when I see things like that. The what was I going to say? I don't know. So there's a certain amount of randomness as to what comes up from that pyramid and what's available to you. But again, you have the capability to kind of mold it to the game you want to play if you need to. Once you come into contact, all kinds of difficulty starts arising. You have to work with the terrain. There's a lot of water on the map, and it's difficult early on to deal with the water. But once you have canoes, the water becomes your highway, which is really kind of neat because you know you can make strikes deep, away. Basically, the enemy has to protect their entire coastline, whatever that coastline is, or else you can jump in there. And it's usually very hard to protect an entire coastline unless you're a small area. And if you're a small area, you may well have difficulty establishing yourself on the map as a whole. So there's a lot of trade-offs as to how the terrain ends up playing out. My wife came up with an interesting suggestion, which was when I mentioned, hey, roads and boats would be kind of cooler to me if it had random terrain. And she was saying, well, I was thinking the opposite. This game would be kind of neat if you could kind of stabilize the terrain so there wasn't quite as much randomness, because the terrain can really play into things again. Well, the cards, they're not that big a deal. The terrain and maybe healers and artificers, especially artificers, which screwed my game completely. If one person doesn't get one of them and only has one little piece and is trying to constantly reproduce it and just keep failing, there's a real risk that they could A, lose that piece and lose the game, or B, just not be able to advance in the ways that they need to. You need healers if you're going into combat or type situation, or if you're going to starve your people. You need artificers if you're going to go for technology, and I think it would be very hard to win this game without technology to play. Let's see what else. Okay, the combat system. I really like it. Completely luckless. If you can figure out and picture the entire board and what's going on in your head, you can put the combat. You can figure out what the combat's going to be. So it becomes, entirely a strategy game at that level. But there's enough going on, and the movement timing with the hunters going before other units, and just the complexity of having, a stacking limit that you have to work with, etc., and how far pieces can move and everything. It all becomes so intertwined and difficult that it's never a really, or it's almost never a really trivial instance of figuring out, wow, this is a good move and this one's not. That actually lends it to me being able to play it solo. If it were very clear, it would feel too much like a game of chess, where it becomes how many turns in advance can you plan this all out, etc. There's certainly room for planning things in advance. There's room for strategic thinking, or at least for longer-term tactical thinking where the battles are concerned. The differentials between the different types of units. You need your healers up near the front where they can recover your units. Your hunters, at least initially, are just good at attacking, and they're going to... so you have this weird kind of situation where whoever gets the first strike in has kind of an advantage. Of course, the person who gets the second strike gets to kind of knock them back afterwards. But it forms this very mobile sort of warfare that's very chaotic and almost feels like a Cav battle in a tactical game would. because you have units that are good at attacking but so bad at defense that whoever's turn it is can kind of wipe out the enemy if they're within range of wiping them out, whatever the range is at the time, which is modified by the tech cards. On the other hand, the farmers are like really cool at defense, but the problem with them is you need them for your food early in the game. So it's very hard to have enough farmers to kind of stiffen your line. And although you want to bring them with you, your stacking limitations and everything make it a hard problem to try to figure out how to take and hold territory, and there's a lot of options for kind of military victory in it. There's like 3 different ways to get military victory, 1 way to get technological victory. I think with decent players, it's going to be tough to get the military victory, unless something, the technology just skews to one player by them being the only ones to get artificers early or something like that. I think in general, you're going to be playing it out a little longer than I did, although the tech would have come out quicker, so it probably would take about the same amount of time, so that somebody gets to the 3 level 4 tech positions. Overall, I think there's a fair amount of depth to this game, and it really seems to give you a lot of room to explore in terms of replayability. Look, the map changes each time, the situations change in terms of what tech's available, where you want to aim for things, what your reproduction is like, everything like that changes throughout the game. So I am kind of low on my battery when I started this and don't have another one. So I think there's enough variability that you're not looking at, a chess or go like situation where someone can just absolutely study the game and it becomes, beyond the book, it becomes really sort of this forming these set patterns and then going in and testing those out. It's not going to really work that way. You've got to be able to react to the situation as it develops. Anyway, components are very nice. I like the cubes and the translucent. The only problem I have, the little clear cubes, which are used as markers, end up kind of making the wooden cubes look like translucent ones, and it's hard to differentiate between them. I don't know of a way to solve that. And then the coloring between the red and the purple translucent cubes, I found a little hard to distinguish under the lighting that I used. But otherwise, the components are really pretty top notch. I'm kind of impressed. This is done by Game Crafter, and yeah, from the things I've seen from them, they put together some pretty nice physical components. Certainly a hell of a lot better than I would do if I tried to print and play this, which was an option. And I think I'm more. I have more respect for this game than enjoyment, which is to say, it's just really not the kind of game that I tend to play very much. I thought it might appeal to my wife more than to me, but I think some of the thinking didn't work as well for her, so she likes like Cathedral and some other games like that a great deal, but she had trouble grasping some of the concepts in this one. Just, what the ramifications of the rules basically are. And that definitely caused her some grief, because it's not a game where you can just kind of shoot from the hip. And that's probably why it's not my kind of game, right? I mean, I just want to say, oh yeah, I want to go out and do this. This makes sense. And you really do have to do a lot of planning and a lot of thinking ahead. And in that sort of sense, it does so in a very clean sort of way. There aren't a lot of rules. There aren't a lot of special things, just the tech cards. And to me, that's an impressive sign. So I have a good deal of respect for the game, but it's not something that if I wanted to play something that requires this much thought and strategic thinking or whatever, I generally play Go, or I would have. I don't even know if I'd enjoy Go anymore. As much as I used to love it, it's maybe I've gotten too old for that kind of thinking. I'm not sure. But anyway, this one's pretty impressive, and you know, if you're interested, especially if you like the idea of a Civ builder, but haven't been happy with two players, trying to modify them or play them under two players, I think this is probably a really, really good choice to give a shot at, and probably can get a fair amount of play out of it if you're the kind of person who plays games more than a couple of times. All right, up to guys.